Justice Clarence Thomas under scrutiny again after last week's Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. This time, the comments coming from former classmate, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who graduated 1 year before the justice from the Yale Law School. Here's what Secretary Clinton said on CBS Mornings.
I went to law school with him. He's been a person of grievance for as long as I've known him. Resentment, grievance, anger. And the thing that well, there's so many things about it that are deeply distressing, but women are going to die, Gail. Women will die.
Now, these comments come after Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot made profane comments about Justice Thomas at a Pride event over the weekend. Joining me, journalist, author, and the co-founder of The Intercept, Glenn Greenwald. Glenn, I wanted to talk to you about Julian Assange, but first you've spoken out about these comments about Justice Thomas. What are your thoughts?
I think it's kind of ironic and bizarre in a number of ways. First of all, it's highly unlikely from my experience having gone to law school, as I know you did, Greta, that if you're in a different class than somebody, you know them very well to be able to opine that way on the intimate parts of their personality. It's also ironic because, in general, calling black men angry and full of resentment and driven by grievance is the sort of thing that's generally looked down upon in liberal discourse, since it uses every trope about African-American men, that they're angry, that they're motivated by grievance. Beyond that, there are a few people in public life more angry and motivated by grievance and resentment than Hillary Clinton. She has an infinite list of people she blames for her 2016 loss. And I also found it quite notable that of 5 justices on the Supreme Court, she singled him out and described him in a very personally kind of maligning way that's at great odds with what other people on the court, like Sonia Sotomayor, have described Justice Thomas's personality being. She gave a speech this week saying, I disagree with him about many things, most things, but he's one of the kindest and most compassionate, most thoughtful and empathetic people that works in the Supreme Court. So these comments are really strange in so many ways.
All right, let me turn now to Mr. Assange, who may be coming to the United States to answer to some charges. And I guess the question falls on this. Is he a journalist? He's the man who's responsible for many leaked documents about Iraq, Afghanistan. Is he a journalist getting a legitimate information, or is he a digital terrorist? And how do you tell the difference?
Well, I think it's very easy to tell the difference. Journalists are people who get contacted by sources. Those sources furnish information to the person that they want to publish it. The sources often break the law in getting that information. Then they hack, like Daniel Ellsberg, they take documents without authorization. That happens all the time with sources. But the journalist themselves doesn't do anything to get the information. Julian Assange has never hacked into anything. He's not even accused of doing that. He is essentially accused of conspiring with Chelsea Manning, not by getting these documents that had such great impact around the world, but by publishing them. And I think the question of whether Julian Assange is a journalist is a very easy one to answer. In my opinion, he is the most consequential, the most pioneering, and the most significant journalist of our generation. More major stories than all of his critics combined. And he does classic journalism. He gets secret documents from sources that he then publishes that are in the public interest. To me, it's a very easy case.
Is it like the Pentagon Papers, or is it different?
I think it's very similar to the Pentagon Papers, or, for example, the Snowden reporting that I was involved in, where it's not the reporter, it's not Assange who went and got the documents, just like it was in the New York Times that took those Pentagon Papers from the Pentagon. It was the source. It was Daniel Ellsberg who takes the documents, Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning. They then give it to the people they want to report. So in Assange's case, he's playing the role of what the New York Times and the Washington Post did in the Pentagon Papers, or what the Guardian and the Washington Post did in the Snowden story, receiving the information and then publishing it, but he's not actually the person grabbing it and taking it.
All right, so are newspapers like the Washington Post, New York Times, which published the Pentagon Papers, are they standing behind him, number one? And number two, why is the government going after him for all these years if it's as simple as what you're saying?
Well, so first of all, I think it's really interesting that when the question first arose under the Obama administration of whether Assange should be prosecuted, most major media outlets did, in fact, rise in defense of Assange, because they said, how can you prosecute Julian Assange for these 2010 publications about Iraq and Afghanistan without prosecuting the New York Times, the Guardian, El País, major newspapers all over the world that publish the same material? And they realized that if this precedent prevailed, it would be a threat not just to Assange, but to journalists all over the world. What happened, Greta, was after 2016, when WikiLeaks published documents that reflected poorly on Hillary Clinton, led to the resignation of the top 5 DNC officials, the media kind of turned on him. I wouldn't say they support the prosecution, but they certainly are nowhere near as vocal as they were prior to 2016. And, you know, the way this happened was the Obama administration really wanted to prosecute Assange. They convened a grand jury for years, and they concluded there was no way to do it without it jeopardizing a free press. It was the Trump Justice Department it was really driven by Mike Pompeo when he was at the CIA, who brought these charges, and now the Biden administration that's continuing them. But pretty much every press freedom group in the West has condemned this as a grave threat to press freedom.
All right, well, we'll see whether or not he's got a right to appeal the order of extradition from London. We'll see what happens, and we'll follow it. Glenn, I hope you come back as we follow this story. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Greta.